The rain hammered against the windows of our small apartment in Seattle, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For weeks, I'd been plagued by a gnawing unease, a sense that something was terribly wrong. My wife, Genevieve, a vibrant and passionate artist, had become distant, her laughter replaced by a preoccupied silence. I, Kester, a 43-year-old IT specialist, found myself increasingly shut out, a stranger in my own home. It started subtly. Late nights at the gallery where she volunteered, claiming extra shifts to prepare for an upcoming exhibition. Business trips that stretched longer than usual. Phone calls taken in hushed tones on the balcony, her back to me. Each incident, insignificant on its own, began to weave a tapestry of suspicion in my mind. I tried to dismiss it, attributing her behavior to stress or the demands of her artistic pursuits. I loved Genevieve, and the thought of her betraying me was unbearable. One evening, I decided to surprise her at the gallery. I picked up her favorite coffee from a local cafe and drove downtown, eager to see her face light up. But when I arrived, the gallery was dark and empty. A lone security guard informed me that Genevieve hadn't been there that night. My heart sank. Where was she? I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Panic clawed at my throat. I drove aimlessly through the city, my mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. Finally, I decided to check her studio, a small space she rented in the industrial district. I knew she often worked late there, losing herself in her art. The studio door was unlocked. As I pushed it open, a wave of stale cigarette smoke and cheap perfume washed over me. The scene that unfolded before me shattered my world. Genevieve was there, locked in a passionate embrace with a man I'd never seen before. He was younger, with a cocky smirk and eyes that seemed to bore right through me even as they widened in surprise. Their clothes were strewn across the floor, canvases lay scattered like fallen leaves, time seemed to stand still. The blood drained from my face, leaving me cold and numb. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. The only sound was the pounding of my heart in my ears. Genevieve pulled away from the man, her face a mask of shock and guilt. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I was paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. "Kester," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think." "What I think," I finally managed to choke out, my voice hoarse with disbelief. "I'm standing here watching you with another man. What am I supposed to think?" The man, recovering from his initial surprise, stepped forward, a defiant glint in his eyes. "Look, buddy, it just happened. We didn't mean for you to find out like this." Up. I roared, my anger finally erupting. I lunged at him, fueled by a rage I never knew I possessed. He stumbled backward, raising his hands in defense. Genevieve screamed, trying to pull me away. "Kester, stop it. You're going to hurt him, hurt him." What about the hurt she had inflicted on me? The betrayal, the lies, the shattered trust. It was all too much to bear. I pushed Genevieve away and stormed out of the studio, leaving them to their shame. I drove home in a daze, the rain blurring the city lights into streaks of color. I felt like I was drowning, suffocating in a sea of grief and anger. How could she do this to me? We had built a life together, shared dreams promised forever. Was it all a lie? I spent the next few days in a fog, unable to eat, sleep, or think clearly. Genevieve called repeatedly, leaving tearful messages begging for forgiveness. I couldn't bring myself to answer. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her justifications. The image of her in that studio in the arms of another man was burned into my mind, a constant reminder of her betrayal. Finally, I decided I needed to confront her. I couldn't live with the uncertainty, the unanswered questions. I arranged to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet park overlooking Puget Sound. She arrived looking pale and drawn, her eyes red and swollen. As she approached, I could see the weight of her guilt etched on her face. "Kester, I am so sorry," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you." "Why, Genevieve, why did you do it?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. She hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine. "I don't know," she finally said. "I was lost. I felt like I was missing something. He made me feel alive, alive," I repeated, incredulous. "And what about me? Didn't I make you feel alive? Didn't our love mean anything to you?" "Of course it did," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But it wasn't enough. I needed something more." Words cut me to the core. "So what now?" I asked. "What do you want?" "I want you to forgive me," she said. I want us to work through this. I still love you, Kester. I looked at her, at the woman I had loved and trusted with all my heart. But all I saw was a stranger, a liar, a betrayer. The love I had felt for her was gone, replaced by a cold, empty void. I can't, Genevieve, I said, my voice flat. I can't forgive you. I can't forget what you've done. It's over, she gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. No, Kester, please don't do this. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said. You broke it. You broke us. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there alone in the rain. As I drove home, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over. The pain was still there, but it was a clean pain, a pain of loss, not of betrayal. The divorce was swift and relatively painless. Genevieve didn't contest it. She seemed resigned to the fact that she had lost me forever. I moved out of our apartment and found a small place near my office. I threw myself into my work, trying to fill the void in my life. Months passed. I started seeing a therapist, trying to process the trauma of Genevieve's betrayal. I learned about forgiveness, about moving on, about rebuilding my life. One day, I received a letter from Genevieve. It was a long, rambling apology, filled with regret and self-recrimination. She wrote about how she had lost everything: her marriage, her reputation, her sense of self. She had broken up with the man she had cheated with, realizing that he was nothing more than a fleeting infatuation. She ended the letter by saying that she understood if I could never forgive her, but she hoped that one day I would be able to find peace. I read the letter with a mixture of emotions: sadness, anger, and a flicker of pity. But I didn't feel any love for her anymore. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. I decided to write her back. I didn't offer forgiveness, but I did offer understanding. I told her that I hoped she would find happiness, even if it wasn't with me. I never heard from her again. Life went on. I continued to work on myself, to heal from the wounds of betrayal. I started dating again, cautiously, aware of the risks involved. I met some wonderful women, but none of them felt quite right. Then one day I met Astrid. She was a librarian, quiet and intelligent, with a gentle soul and a warm smile. We connected instantly, sharing a love of books, art, and long walks in the park. Astrid knew about my past. I had been honest with her from the beginning, telling her about Genevieve and the pain I had endured. She listened without judgment, offering only compassion and support. Slowly, carefully, I began to trust her. I opened my heart to her, sharing my hopes and dreams. And she did the same. One evening, as we sat on my balcony, watching the sunset over Puget Sound, Astrid turned to me and said, "Kester, I love you." I looked into her eyes and saw a depth of love and understanding that I had never seen before. "I love you too, Astrid," I said, my voice thick with emotion. We kissed, a long, tender kiss that sealed our commitment to each other. I knew that Astrid was the one. She was the woman I was meant to spend the rest of my life with. She was my second chance, my redemption. We got married a year later, in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I stood at the altar, watching Astrid walk towards me, I felt a sense of peace and happiness that I had never thought possible. Genevieve's betrayal had been a devastating blow, but it had also been a catalyst for change. It had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to learn about forgiveness, and to open my heart to new possibilities. I knew that I would never completely forget what had happened, but I had learned to live with it. I had moved on, found love again, and built a new life. A life filled with happiness, trust, and unwavering love. Years later, I received an unexpected email. It was from a woman claiming to be Genevieve's sister. She informed me that Genevieve had passed away from a long illness. She wrote that in her final days, Genevieve often spoke of me, expressing deep regret for her actions and wishing she could have made amends. The news hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, a part of me still cared for Genevieve. I felt a profound sense of sadness for the wasted years, the missed opportunities, and the pain she had caused herself and others. I attended her funeral, standing at the back of the church, a silent observer. I saw her family, her friends, and the man she had cheated with, all mourning her loss. I didn't approach them, didn't offer my condolences. I simply paid my respects and left. As I walked away from the church, I realized that I had finally found closure. Genevieve's betrayal was no longer a source of anger or resentment. It was simply a part of my past, a chapter in my life that had shaped me into the person I am today. I returned home to Astrid, to our loving home, to our beautiful life. And I knew that I was finally, truly at peace. One day, while clearing out some old boxes, I stumbled upon a small, leather-bound journal. It was Genevieve's. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it. The journal was filled with her thoughts and feelings, her hopes and dreams. As I read through it, I began to understand her better. I saw her vulnerabilities, her insecurities, her longing for something more. I also saw the depth of her regret for hurting me. She wrote about how much she loved me, how sorry she was for betraying my trust, and how she wished she could take it all back. As I closed the journal, I felt a wave of compassion wash over me. I realized that Genevieve was not a monster, but a flawed human being who had made a terrible mistake. And while her actions had caused me immense pain, I could finally forgive her. I placed the journal back in the box and closed the lid. It was time to let go of the past, to embrace the present, and to look forward to the future with Astrid by my side. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, of joys and sorrows, of love and loss. But through it all, we must never lose hope, never give up on the possibility of finding happiness and fulfillment. And sometimes the greatest blessings come from the most unexpected places. The rain has stopped now. The sun is shining, casting a golden glow over Puget Sound. I stand on my balcony holding Astrid's hand, and I know that everything is going to be all right. The betrayal was a deep wound, a scar that will always be a part of me. But it doesn't define me. It has made me stronger, more resilient, and more appreciative of the love I have found with Astrid. And for that, I am grateful. I am Kester, and this is my story of betrayal, forgiveness, and finding love again.